Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irene. I'm the host here, and my guest today became a good friend over this past year, Liz from TreLiz. Welcome to my channel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We got to hang out a lot at Vogue Knitting Live and also in Barcelona Knits before that. And I don't know. I feel like I know you for 100 years, even though we sort of met mostly last year.
Mhm.
We got to talk a little bit about how you found yourself to be a yarn dyer, and it's not like very direct path to that. So share with
No.
me that story again. Let's go back. Like when did you first discover knitting, fiber, like all this beautiful stuff that's behind you now?
So the first time that I started knitting was around the end of 2013, and it was literally an accident. At the time, I was in a area of my life that I did lots of sports and all that, and I wanted to find something to be more at home. So I
Wait,
bought
let's talk about those sports because we're not talking just like a little aerobics there. Like, what kind of sports did you try?
Well, I was already doing horse riding for a few years because I never had the chance to do it as a child. So I was very excited at the time to do more of that and connect with the horses and all that. But what I was really doing, like almost every day, I even was going to work after with my board. I was doing kite surfing. So yeah, it was a fun period, I have to say. But I was feeling very tired, but very excited at the same time.
What did you do for work back then?
I was an optometrist and I was working in an ophthalmology clinic, and I was doing also eye research. Sorry. And so it was, the joke was that, because I was going after surfing sometimes to the clinic directly and I had my board and all that. And sometimes I would go to work with my bike. They said the only thing that now we're expecting you is to come to work with a horse. And I was like, oh, don't tempt me.
Okay, so one day you at
Yeah.
work after kite surfing and you think to yourself, I need to find myself something to calm myself down.
Yes, a bit more calming, like it's okay for me if I'm not always outside running around. And I thought of buying a sewing machine, but I didn't know how to sew. And funny enough, after 2 days, I met a friend of my sister's that had also a sewing machine and she didn't know how to sew. So we said, okay, maybe we can, search the internet and teach ourselves. But while we were searching on the internet about patterns and all that, we were always stumbling on Ravelry. And we were like, what's that? Oh, it's knitting. I was like, I think there's a code with the K's and the P's. But, we didn't really mind it at first. And then after doing a couple of things, one day she saw a shawl that she really, really liked. And she's like, do you think that if I ask my mom to teach us how to knit, like, would you be interested? And I was like, why not? I have no idea. Like, yeah, maybe. So it was really fun because her mom is also French, and we were gathering on Mondays afternoons after work, and of course there was the tea, there was the nice biscuits, so there was all this, stimulating things also, apart the knitting part. And then after a while, my mom also joined us, so it was really cool. And I did my first hat, and for my niece who wasn't born yet, and the hat was too small, so she never wore it, but because I was knitting so tightly. And I said, yeah, it's nice when you have the finished project, you feel you have accomplished something. but I'm not sure. And the colors, I'm, I'm not so sure, if I like them, if it's something really for me. I'm not a very patient person. And her mom kind of jokingly, she was like, yeah, well, Liz, you like to paint and all that. Maybe you could do your own. But I didn't realize in that moment that it was something that actually people do or that people could do. And after a couple of months, I had an accident. I hit very severely my head, and I was going to work but didn't do much. And that was the time when I was like, I Googled, hand dyeing yarn. And back in the day, there was a bit of blog posts, so there wasn't a lot of information about it. But I was like, I have to try that. So I started, getting yarns, fibers, because I also saw that you can spin your yarn. And I was like, oh, I have to try that. So after like 3 or 4 months, I knew how to spin yarn. I knew different methods, how to dye yarn. I was mixing some of those methods, and I had quite a lot of stash and of yarn and of fiber. And I was like, am I gonna knit all this? Like, I don't know. So that's when the idea of having an Etsy shop came to me. Because it was the beginning of Etsy and all that, and you didn't really need also, paperwork to have a small shop over there. And so I opened the Etsy shop, and I said, maybe some people would like that, and I can have this on the side or whatever happens. But and having done my own yarns, the colors and all that made me more curious about how the end result knitted fabric would be. So that made me even more curious of continuing knitting. So that's how I continued to knit. But for me, it was I was more fascinated on how the different fibers would take the color and the properties of the fiber, and how you can spin it. And because I like to spin, like art yarns, I didn't like them to be, regular, just to put a twist on things. And that's why my motto is color is power, fiber is our weapon, because it was the color that made of me a knitter. Yeah, and while I didn't really thought much of that Etsy shop, I contacted Malabrigo, and I had some Malabrigo yarns in my Etsy shop. So because I was like, who knows me? Nobody knows me. Like, how are they going to find me? So I added Malabrigo because Malabrigo was already famous, and lots of people were starting to buy Malabrigo yarns from me, but they also added some of my skeins. And that's how it all kind of started.
When I walked at Barcelona Knits, and there is like variety of different dyers and a lot of very, very talented dyers there, and a lot of different yarn bases. Mm-hmm. Your booth was still standing out. I mean, you guys can real understand why I'm saying that, because if you just look at Liz's background, you see how eye-catching it is. When you started, like, tell me about the first festival that you vended at. Like, how did that happen?
Okay, so because I don't have many clients in Greece, and I wanted to get more people get to know me, I said, okay, there's festivals going on. Maybe I can, take a couple of days from work and just go to a festival and see. Because up till that point, I didn't realize if what I wanted to do had, was actually sane, because nobody else is doing that, near me. And there was a festival. So my first festival was in Switzerland in 2015. So almost, 10 years ago. And I remember how excited I was, and, to go there and all that. And actually, the first person I met was Romy. We were We were lost in the bus, and we took the bus to get into the venue. So it was really funny as an encounter. And then the second person I met is Merit, who organizes now the yarn, the Swiss Yarn Festival. So back then it was another organization and all that. And I was very hyped. Like, if you think that now I have lots of energy, back then it was like 10 times more. I was going and I was saying to everybody, I'm going to brainwash you with color is power, fiber is weapon. I was telling it so much that at some point I said color is power, and everybody said fiber is our weapon, and I'm like, yeah, good. And people were very excited to meet me, to talk to me. And it was such another feeling, and making a sense and validating that what I felt inside of me, that, ooh, fiber and color, speaks to me. I don't know why, but I need to try it. That feeling inside of me was validated, by strangers, by people that got it.
Right.
And that was a big aha moment for me, because before that festival, when I was saying that, and I wouldn't share it with everybody, I would say, I'm dyeing also yarn, and I would like to, maybe do that and change my line of work. They were like, why yarn? But why? Like, you have a good job. And also I loved my job. It wasn't that I didn't love my job. So it was, everybody was like questioning it. And then my energy shifted, because I felt also more assured that what I wanted, my inner calling, that, it made sense. Yes, this is it. So whenever I said that I was dying, it came from a different energy. And from that point on, we're like, really? Wow, that's amazing. And you do that for work, and now everybody is amazed. Like, the thing that I have the best and the best kind of work that of course, okay, I'm traveling because I don't have really a community here in my country. And sometimes it's tiring. I love to travel, but sometimes it's tiring, and it's difficult to have only 4 clients in your in your country. But on the other hand, that made me pursue my dreams, and it broke immediately the shell, that I wouldn't have to think about maybe the Greek community being disappointed if I did this, or, my prices are too expensive or whatever. So I kind of got out and did it my way immediately. So that was liberating in a sense.
Do you think your friend's mother was right, and the fact that you are a painter first helped you to create your own style and your own color ways?
I think that what helped is that I wasn't afraid to try. And in general, I'm a curious person. I like to know how things work and all that. And it's funny, because my dream job as a kid was to be a vet who was famous for its paintings. So now, if I think about it, maybe I'm not a vet, but it's animal fibers that I do dye, and there's color. And I think my love for science and something more artistic, like, really came like in a good marriage. So I think that's what I also liked. Like the different kind of fibers, like what is making, that fiber bringing a halo, like the scales. It wasn't just about the shape, but also the mechanics behind it.
I
But
mean,
also being free to just put the colors in.
when you think about yarn dyeing, there is basically science to that, as you mentioned, right? It's a basic chemistry, but there is also the artistic side of that. How do you approach your collection? Like starting your collection and feeling in your collection, right? Like, do you go pragmatically, like I'm missing this color, or is it like inspiring, like, oh, I saw this flower and I want that color?
I think it changes. So sometimes I will just grab colors, and sometimes I will not even look at what colors I'm grabbing, and I'm like, okay, let's make them work. And sometimes, there aren't colors that I would normally choose to put together. So that's like a nice puzzle solving thing and get me out of my comfort zone. Other times maybe I have read a book, and because I like to put funny names, maybe from quotes, maybe from songs and all that, I would like think of a quote and I will be, okay, how am I feeling with this quote? How, what is the feeling? What is the color that goes with that? So there's more and more of that, of how I feel about certain words. And other times it's, I remember in the beginning, I really wanted bright colors, because I want my life to be bright and all this cheery, uh, cheery energy. But I also, really embraced more of darker colors because that's also me. So it will depend my mood. So I can't really say if there's, something very pragmatic that's happening. But what I remember when I first began to dye is when you do, let's say, a new color, everybody was, saying in the blogs back at the time, just write down, measure, measure, measure. And maybe it is my more scientific background that it was like, very much serious, and we had protocols for surgery, for the research and all that, that I really went with the feeling. So I know what colors I'm using, how I'm doing, like the technique, but I'll never put exactly, in the grams. Like I've never measured anything. Like maybe, like a teaspoon or something, like I measured like that.
Right.
And in the beginning, I remember that I felt bad about it a bit. There was like an imposter syndrome that I'm not doing it, the right way, if there was one. And that, some colorways might be different from batch to batch. And then there was the realization, well, it's hand dyed. It's not supposed to be exactly the same. Like even in the same pot, I have like 5 skeins. Not one of them is going to be similar than the other one. So do it, the way you want to do it. And that was also very liberating, sometimes the restrictions that other people, how they do some techniques, and then make it the difference of making it your own.
When I'm thinking about like the life of a yarn dyer, right? Like I'm thinking you getting up like very like late bohemian lifestyle, you're getting your cup of coffee, you go for a little horse ride maybe, and you come back and you stir something in the pot and you sprinkle some magic and boom, the color is born. How far am I from the truth?
I think a lot.
So tell me the day of yours, like describe me how it is like.
Okay. A typical day. A typical day is that I wake up not very early, but not very late either. So usually around 8, 8:30. And I could get up, later on. But I like to do, but if I get up a bit later, I get a bit stressed because I have, that to-do list. And because when I wake up, I want to do a meditation and maybe some yoga. And I like to, for that time frame, to not even look at the time, not even look at my phone, so I know that I have the time, so I don't wonder, ooh, it's late, do I have to run, So that's the start. Then, I dress up. I don't, I don't eat in the morning. So that's a habit that I'm trying to change slightly, but yeah. And I just grabbed my things, my iPad, my phone, and I go to the studio. And it will depend. If I have prepared already some yarns that are soaking, I will start immediately dyeing. Also, another thing is that I want to start with the dyeing is because when you're dyeing lots of quantities, it starts to get really physical. So usually I like to do all that part in the morning while I feel more strong. So it's done. And in between the pods, either I will be scanning yarn that is, was dyed already, or I will be labeling. Sometimes I will be knitting, but usually there's no time because you have already all the other things. If there's not too much sun, because I have lots of sun in the daylight, in the morning here, I would try to take also pictures for Instagram. Think about a caption for Instagram. But sometimes it comes very naturally and all that, but some other times you're like, okay, what do I have to say? What do I have to show, And then it's like the second batch of dyeing. Usually I try to do 2 to 3 big batches of dyeing, but lately I've been doing 2, which that means around 10 to 11 kilos. So, and yeah, and then I'll just hang them. Over here I have my hanger. Hang them. And yeah, if I have to do more admin. So admin work, I try to do them like 3 times per week, because sometimes when you start admin and emails, you're just doing just emails and admin and you never get things done. Yeah, so I try to leave the studio around 4 p.m., which is not that bad. I don't think like it's a very big day. I think it's a normal day. And then I'll just, in between, I will eat something and I will do tea. Okay. And then I'll go home and here we eat late lunch, so I will eat something and then I will rest a bit, and depending on the day, I will either go to a dance class or just chill at home or see some friends, and yeah, something like that.
Well, have you ever regretted getting into this business? Because like it seems like it's almost this poetic vision of the yarn dyeing, but it's a heavy duty business. Like, first of all, it's physically very demanding. You work with chemicals, you're on the schedule, you're doing a lot of festivals also, so you have to always make sure that you have enough inventory for the festivals, and you have to have inventory for your customers in between the festivals. Have you ever regretted getting into that and not staying an ophthalmologist?
I think it's not, I think I've never regretted it, but there's definitely been periods that I felt very much, on the side, because I'm not in a country where I have, lots of a community. Like if I was in another country, maybe I would have grown, faster and I would have more support. And maybe the lows weren't as much, lows. But on the other hand, I think that the same things, that make me sometimes getting tired, they make me grow more stable, in a more stable manner. But it's definitely sometimes, yeah, very tiring. And yeah, and sometimes I hope that, I'm thinking that growing older that I can continue doing it, because it is very physical. And sometimes there's the worry of that, but no, I think that in some shape, even if things might change, I don't know, but there will always be a form of TreLiz.
Well, when you think about when you first got into that and today, how do you see the whole industry changing? Are you afraid that the hand-dyed business is just gonna fall out of fashion at some point?
I don't think so, because I think that that people okay, so hand-dyed yarns are more expensive than other more let's say industrial yarns. So definitely there would be like economic challenge, but I think that people who are really interested of doing something unique and having unique pieces, like they will always choose that. Maybe it would be less or but I think that there will always be a place for that. I think that if there's respect in the industry of the bigger companies to the smaller ones, and from the smaller ones to the bigger ones, there will always be place for everybody. Sometimes I I see that a bit more challenging, but other times I think that it's a pretty solidary community. But yeah, I don't know.
Well,
I
when I
don't know.
came to Barcelona Knit, like the first thing I noticed was that there was a wide variety of fiber bases, and much
Mhm,
more so than I witnessed in US.
mhm.
That your experience as well, and do you like playing with different fibers, or is it cost prohibitive for the dyers?
Okay, so there are a lot of bases that are the same in lots of dyers, and that's because many of us are buying our bases from stockists that have those different bases and all that. And so they have a price and you can buy as much as you want. So it is a bit more expensive for us to buy from them than to buy from a mill, but we can buy lesser quantities. Like if I need 5 kilos, I can buy 5 kilos. And because dyers, lots of people think that dyers are the rock stars and they have lots of money. I think we're all, trying our best. So sometimes, even if I have like I have like 5 festivals on the row, I would have loved, in the summertime to take like, let's say 30 or 50 kilos, but I can't in that price. So I will get like 10 kilos now. And after a month and a half, when some money will get in, I will get some more. So that is what is more usually done. Then when we have other more, and now I can say that because I have the two bases that are non-superwash. One is the Italian wool of the sheep called Gentile di Lucania, and my other base, my gray base, Samskara, which is 60% superfine merino and 40% recycled yak and cashmere, and that's like an exclusive yarn. I'm talking with the mill and they're doing that just for me. But for the mill to be able to do that, they have to like do like 100 kilos of fiber. And then I have to buy whatever is done, like maybe 100 grams, 100 kilos of fiber that will end result maybe at 60 kilos of yarn. And then I have to buy those 60 kilos right in that moment. So it is more interesting to have more special fibers, at least for me, because then you bring really something even more unique, and you also can show your taste, more, and also from the fibers. But on the other hand, you can do it that in the majority of, a big selection. So I think it's different ways of working and different ways of, you know, putting your money on having the different bases that you can work on. And I definitely find it more interesting to have unique bases. I also have in mind for another base, but I don't know when it's gonna happen because we'll see.
Right. Tell me about the preparation for a festival. So let's say you coming to the Swiss Yarn Festival. When do you start preparing for it? What steps are involved? Like, what's the most frustrating part of it? What's your favorite part of that?
Okay. Well, usually now, because I have also another festival just a month before, I was just, I got the bases that I wanted, like enough, and I had to hustle, to dye them. But usually I have on my mind approximately like I want 4 or 5 bases, how much of, each or how many colors. And that's kind of it. And then it's totally random, the bases that you're gonna bring. Would people would like those bases, or would they ask for another base that you decided not to bring because the last year you brought it and nobody wanted it, So it's a bit random. And in the end of the day, now that I've done lots of festivals, sometimes I even have maybe like 2 or 3 kilos, some leftovers of a base. And I'm like, okay, let's just also bring that. Maybe somebody would like something, have a bit of a discount because there's not a lot of options. And I think now there's not so much planning. It's just, get on with it.
Are you surprised by like what people buy and what people don't buy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also very interesting because sometimes I have some colors and I'm like, wow, it's gorgeous. People are gonna love it. And then nobody gets it. And sometimes even like a very like famous or a best-selling colorway is like sitting in a festival and I'm like, how come nobody has taken it? And after a bit that I'm thinking it, somebody's coming and just getting it. And I'm like, okay, now I have some trust again, in the universe. And other times there are other colorways that it's not that I don't like them, but there might like I see their potential, but it's not like maybe my favorite in maybe, a collection of 7 new colorways. And people are going for that. And so sometimes you have to also kind of surrender to the process of, what people will like, and not be too harsh of the result of a colorway because we're all different.
I want to ask you a question that I never actually ask a yarn dyer. So lately I've been talking to designers, like big designers like Kohi and Isabel Kramer, and like a lot of designers, when you talk to them about collaboration with yarn dyers, they would say, people throw yarn at us all the time and they tell us like, here, just take it, no strings attached, like do something with it. But it adds pressure on designers because on one hand, they want to support small dyers. On the other hand, they limited in time, and then you might not have the same base by the time they're done with the pattern. Tell me your side of that story. How do you promote your yarn? Is it frustrating that designers don't necessarily want to work with small dyers?
Um, in the beginning, I used to do kits before kits were a thing. But I was, too small. People didn't know me. And I was contacting some dyers, bigger or smaller, whoever wanted to do something. And and then we would have like the kit, options of colors, and I would have like maybe, the amount of the pattern, and then I would give them, the money after a certain point, something like that. That was very interesting because it got me out of my comfort zone, to just send emails, and whoever wanted, I was happy, because like it's not that I don't care that if a bigger designer, is going to want to work with me or a smaller one. But for me, it's like it's a collaboration. Like I will treat it the same way, it's an opportunity for me to talk about them and them to talk about me. So I was just feeling it like that. And afterwards, there was a long time, even now, kind of, that I really didn't pursue collaborations, uh, except with a few people that I worked and I had like very good, results, like we're in the same mind and the same vibe, let's say. And now with the two new yarns, after a very long time, I just did an email and I sent it to lots of people, just presenting the bases, like if they would be interested, that they will be here and all that. Some of them immediately said, I'll be interested. Let's talk about colors, but maybe the time frame will be for a year and a half, And then I was like, sometimes it's nice when it's a long time because you also have the time to prepare until that time. And and some of them were like, "Oh, we're seeing each other in that festival. Let's do it for that festival." I was like, "Are you sure? Isn't it too fast?" And then I had the pressure, to do the colors. And I have also other dyers that I had given yarn, because they wanted it, and I just didn't want money, because I feel that as a creative person, you shouldn't put the stress on the other person. I want a hat and I want it then, because it kills the process of inspiration, the process of lots of things. And yeah, after 2 years, it was yarn that I have given, and she came up with a sweater, and then with a shawl that had my name, and then with a sweater that had my name. And I was like, come on, I love it. And other designers that really wanted the yarn that I gave it, because in the end, for me, like, I gave 3 skeins, in the larger part, from my whole life. Am I going to miss the money of those 3 skeins? No. So I gave them, and then I never had any return after like 4 years. So
Right.
I do think about it, but I think that's their karma, not mine. So I might be a bit disappointed, but it's okay.
Do you ever get despaired about this? Like, is there ever like really low times? Because it's also like a lonely business. You are against the world. It's you and your dye pots and your bases and your vision, and people are out there.
Well, I think I get more despaired, if I can say that, if I if I feel disappointed, if I feel that um, a collaboration or something that was born, from two mindsets or from a group of people that had the same vision, that was literally killed because, someone felt, I don't know, insecure or for other reasons. So I have, a couple of times felt very despaired. And also lots of times I've also felt, that, I'm just barely doing it. And not in a very recent, time, like even now, always January is a very low, January and February are a bit low months, for me at least. And so in those moments, I'm thinking that to regain my trust on myself and on things, that to remind myself that, you faced more difficult times, and everything was okay, and it's even more okay. And I believe that if you want to grow, either as a business or as a person, that, some struggle will come along the way, and you'll have to invest time, strength, labor. So in a way, it's a natural process. That doesn't mean that, we totally enjoy it and that we welcome it. But there's been quite a and 2024 was really, for me at least, very I had some desperate times, for sure.
I mean, it's hard for me to imagine you feeling low because every time I see you, you're just bursting of energy. And I feel like people around you, even people who don't know you, just like immediately falling in love with you because you're so positive, you're so upbeat, you're so happy. So it's hard for me to picture you at the back.
Oh, I can cry, and I ugly cry for sure. Definitely. Um, that's funny because when you say that, it came to mind that um, for me, being smiling, being, in this kind of energy, maybe sometimes I don't think that it's a mask. Maybe when I was younger, like I would never show, really what's bothering me and all that. Now I don't mind. I think if something happens, you can see it immediately in my face. But for sure, I want the people that are around me to have a good time, to feel comfortable. And so I think a smiley face adds a lot to that. And even once at school, I was punished because I was in the library. We were the whole class in the library. And the teacher was like, Liz, why are you smiling? I want, like two pages, a redaction of why you're smiling. So I was like, I'm smiling because I want to see people smiling. And I just did like a paragraph. And in the end of the year, we're going with our little books, with our, the classes pictures and the school yearbook. And I asked him to write something. And he wrote that I was a serious student. Me, I was like, am I a serious student? Like, what is he talking about? And I thought that he really, really disliked me, this teacher. And he said, a serious student that asked me one and good question, that if I was able to understand that a smile could be a reflection of a way of living. Back at the time, I didn't understand a word of what he was saying, and that's why I remember the words, because I couldn't grasp. And I was like, okay, this is a compliment, but I thought he didn't like me. And then after years, I realized what he meant, and I was like, "Whoo, good for me." But I think it's just, trying to find an inner strength, maybe through a smile. I don't know.
Well, when you meet people at festivals or through your customers, how did that change your life? Like, do you see the knitting and fiber community as like your way of life, as your friends? Like, did
Yeah. Well, it's funny because now, okay, in the beginning it was a bit lonely because, I was staying alone everywhere and all that. But slowly, slowly, now I can say I have a family in New York. I have a family in different parts of France. I have a family in Switzerland. I have a family in Spain. I have so many families. And it's funny because with some of the clients, like we're sharing reels, about other stuff, about spirituality, about other things, because they know that I'm about meditation or hypnosis or things like that. Shamika, for example, we met at the festival in Scotland and we're talking practically every day. And with a dyer from Belgium, Nathalie, she's by Nights Creations on Instagram. We talk every day because she has, it also helps that we have very different processes because she's a natural dyer, but immediately we connected, and it's nice to get someone that gets it. She understands what it's to prepare a festival. She understands what it is to have a client sending you like 3 emails because they want your opinion about the colorway, but they forgot to tell you, which pattern they want to do or how much yarn they have to take, but they forgot to say to you the size that they wanted, so all this back and forth, which you are happy to do, but sometimes you're like, oh, I was just, closing down everything, and then I saw this email and I did the mistake to read it, and then it was like after another hour it was finished. But yeah, I definitely see a lot of people, not even as friends but as family. There are definitely some very core people.
well, if you ever find yourself near Boston, you can say to
I
them.
will let you know.
I'm actually really looking forward to seeing you at Swiss Yarn Festival. I'm very excited. I'm more excited about seeing people I like again than actually going to another festival, because I feel
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like, festivals might blur a bit, but people
Mhm.
definitely stay in focus, you know.
Yes, definitely. And for example, now in New York in January, like I always participate at Vogue Knitting Live. This year I didn't participate in Vogue Knitting Live. I just went to the retreat that I'll do with Row One Tree Travels to India next year. And I did a pop-up at Nitty City, the shop. So it was a very different kind of way to be there, also for work, but also to see, friends and all that. And it was really nice to be able to enjoy a bit more of the people, being there. And especially the Swiss Yarn Festival. Uh, okay, it has definitely a special place in me because it is also the first one that I did back in 2015, even if it was other organization back then. But yeah, so there are people that I met in that first festival. So now it will be 10 years that I know them. And some of them were like Charlotte Stone. She came and got yarn, and her daughter was, I don't know, 7. Yeah, because now she's 18, so 7 or 8. And we have like a small video where she's looking at my yarn, she's like going, oh, and I we've shared, our lives, and it's really, really special. And it's awesome. It's really awesome.
Is there some special colorway that you're thinking of making just for the festival?
It's funny because I'm very bad at doing, special things for a festival. And every time I say, oh, I will have to do, a special thing for this festival or for that festival. And then I just forget it. And I'm also very bad at doing things for, occasions, like for Halloween, for Valentine's Day, for Mother's Day. I know that in the US, people are crazy about that. It's a great marketing technique, but I'm so bad at it. I'm very bad at it. So I try to remember to do a Valentine's one and a Halloween one. And lately I have done it, but I always like to do it like with a twist. So now I just shipped yesterday some sock kits for Valentine's Day, but they're a bit sarcastic because, yeah, the names. The one is I think of you. The other one is it'll pass because it's inspired by Fleabag, the series. And the last one is Magnificent Ass. So, yeah, right.
Well,
Spicy.
well, I want to thank you for being my guest today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm so looking forward to seeing you in a couple of months.
I'm very happy to have finally that we've set the date and we did this chat. It was really great seeing you again and having this wonderful talk. I would love it, to have, part 2, part 3.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll find myself in Greece and I can film you in process, actually.
That would be amazing. That would be great.
Well, thanks so much, Liz. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you very much, Irina, for the honor. Thank you so much. And I'll see you in a couple of months.